Okay, so it's late afternoon now on Tuesday, May 24th. The motherboard for this Skylake build. This is part two of these videos. I installed the motherboard today after it arrived, and did a bunch of other stuff here. So you can see it's just a beautiful board. So one of the first things I did was to install the RAM and the G-Skill RAM. There she is, 32 gigs of 2666 speed DDR4. Putting it in slots 2 and 4. So that's the preferred when you've got only 2 sticks on this board. Then I installed the back support for the H100 cooler and installed the standoffs. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's done, and then I started working on largely putting the cables in. I put the main power supply cable in, and then the CPU power cable. I did have some issues with when I did install the motherboard. This heat sink here, which is over the input-output ports, actually is fastened to the motherboard by 2 screws that are in the exact location of. You can see it right between. There's one of the screws between the CPU power connector and that heat sink, and then the other one is down at this end. There's the other screw that attaches that heat sink. But in any event, those 2 screws are in the exact locations of the 2 out of the 9 motherboard attachments that sit over the standoffs, motherboard standoffs. So it made sense to me to undo and remove the heat shield and verify indeed that that's what was the case, that those screws were in an exact location of the motherboard's supports standoffs. So I then there was actually 2 nuts that held that heat sink onto the motherboard. So I removed the nuts and then used the screws to reattach the heat sink and screw into the motherboard standoffs. I wasn't real sure about that. There was nothing in the manual, so I called MSI support, and they verified that indeed this is the proper method. And I told them they should probably amend their manual so that that's pointed out, because there was nothing in there at all about that. So after that, installing the standoffs for the H100i cooler, putting the RAM in, then I started attaching cables. And besides the main power and CPU power cables, I then attached the front panel connectors, and it's a little tough to see here, but there's the front panel connectors are in that kind of braided cord, and they have a really slick little device that eases that installation, and it's just a little adapter that you plug everything into, and then plug that into the board all at once, so you're not plugging in individual cables at one at a time. So that helped. Got that done. I plugged the front 2 fans, the intake fans, into the system fans. There's a system fan 3 and a system fan 2, and then a system fan 1, which I use to connector to plug into that for the exhaust fan. So, see, the only other thing, yeah, okay. So the other front panel connector that I plugged in was the front audio connector for the headphones and so on, and then also the USB 3.0 connector from the front two USB 3.0 ports that are in the front of the case. So and did a little cable management on the rear, but not too much because I've got more cables to install tomorrow. I did connect the power and cable and the data connector to the DVD drive, and also for my boot drive, my 128 gigabyte SSD drive. So those are all plugged into the power supply here, as well as some of the other connectors. Again, I've got some more cable management to do on this, but for my test boot, this is what I'm going to do. I probably put more cables in than I normally would, but since the CPU is not arriving till tomorrow, I used the time to try to get some advanced work done on it. Again, the back cable management is coming along. Let's see here. Let me get a better shot. Oh, well, I'll do that later. I don't want to raise this thing up. Maybe I will. Yeah, what the hell. Okay, pick this thing up. So here's the back cable management so far. Again, got a lot to do yet, but what's really nice are these big 1, 2, 3 brackets that actually are detachable. They come out with a latch, and you can route the cables underneath it, and then it makes them, you know, go flat against the case. So anyhow, that's about it for right now. I will do another short video after the CPU arrives tomorrow, and I can install it and connect the heatsink and from the H100i and get ready to do a test boot. Thanks for watching.